Legion. Hello, young Legion. I forget I was going to say before. Then sometimes you get ready. You're going to do a video. Then you put the little things. Then you go through the process to set up the live stream. You forget the whole mood is different. But YouTubers. So is anyone here? Can you hear me? So this is no, in other words, what we've been talking about is the Burroughs book and the plan with the pamphleteers for the world too. Though this is a plan that we could do the five boroughs of every country, like every city. When we take retreat positions, we're going to communicate with ourselves and set up the fight. Where we know we're going to fight ourselves, we're going to fight as a species body. So we're going to win no matter who loses. But in other words, we're going to claim unacceptable, tactically, criminally foreign influence, our standards with the identity, the grounds, identity of relationship to itself everywhere. So simultaneously, constantly doing that being our agenda everywhere. Syntactically, that while we are syntactically simultaneously addressing where it is most forsaken, where it is most evident that this tactical engineering is being having been applied for the torture and for the method, and with the other things like the identity theft, fraud, slander, that was additional to the slavery of our founding parents that they won't let us speak about, including the other founding parents because they were counter-extorted. This divided everyone from everyone. It made the identity of the species volumes, the identity of relationship to itself, self-valued that way. Tactically other from as systems tactical than its own /S, the way it is. Not just best, but as the only way it's going to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, and evolution's fruits and gifts. So we're going to be admitting simultaneously this, and doing this together enables us to have, on this at the same time, open up spaces in suburbs throughout the country where people can take, where Hartford needs to have, in other words, we're in a trap. Even if people don't agree with it, some of them agree about it now, and in a lot of ways, everyone agrees. The only reason people think they don't agree is because people are polling and asking questions, framed, and leaving out exceptions and exception nature note, and they're pretending that's the opinion of the people. They're pretending their audiences believe what they don't. They're pretending the audiences of the Republicans and the audiences of the Democrats believe what they don't. They're pretending if they steal your voice, the news media, offensively preventing people free speech, know that they're racketeering roles. As long as their private police forms and their sources interbranch are corrupt, they don't care. Now, how they got that way is the same exact way the overt criminal enterprises and killers got that way. Because you can't leave out where the campuses have roles with the identity theft, fraud, slander. And everyone's speaking through each other with that. That's one of the methods. That's one of the things. That's one of the things. Roles all distinctly with the breaching method are commonly identity theft, fraud, slander, and slavery, and torture. But where that is debatable, they've been getting away with debating what's not debatable, because of differential criminal. Everybody's differentially criminally foreign influence in relationship to this, but it's increasingly. And where and how it's differentially, you guys have been child abused since you were kids, from campuses A through Z, from the most sophisticated campus to the worst campus. There's a certain nature of collusion, and then when they're pretending that they aren't the worst campus or the best campus that's corrupt, and obfuscating proper answer /S. I tell best vaccines. So the breaching method gave them needs and means. to get away with pretending that their science is unabridged, for example, because the breaching method measured and maintained that the phenomenon of what really led up to the having us told to get the Constitution unabridged and us told that we could use Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. And not only are there so many ways fake justice is actually recorded when people formally and or informally have been making opinions about color, for example, because the breaching method implied that with physical delusions and criminally foreign influence, fact treatments and defenses of it, and counters to it. When you examine the counters to it, they are themselves being and having been employed multi-front, breaching screens, weapons, tools, worse, forcing, tricking, hurting, persuading, the real causes of it blamed on other things other than themselves, simultaneously forcing a quality of fact treatment nature that can't be defended, and the locations of areas and states to afford counter of it. The real causes of criminal and citizen's nature, predicate acts at locations, role motivations for roles with it, motivations with people's actually, apparent motivations are juxtaposed with other ones. So, like, the worst strangers that would like steal people, missing people that would murder people, make them missing people, they have collusions with the overt criminal enterprises and with the interbranch and with the private, originally still self-valued but uncharged, even though they were recorded criminally foreign influence, delusions wrong. See, in defenses of themselves, you could record where how they were criminally utilized, that is still have been used. See, but they have readings of statutes that leave out and have left out exceptions in exception nature. Increasingly, they are self-valuing roles with the predicate acts delivery system method and or a criminal insidiousness delivery system method at each age of campus, multi-front in a coordinated way /S, replacing where and how. To understand American history, to really be able to make proper treatments by all the names in it and happenings, one has to understand how Native Americans from Native America were forced to fight with the Native Americans because of that breaching method that was simultaneously replacing their short words and their means to defend them in the educational locations, in the value systems. In other words, quality of food, things like that. How everyone speaks, therefore, about positive and negative things. How they're going to cause positive value to progress. No longer tied to the ground, which actually around in native pure, no matter who you are, too. So then, how humans as Native Americans are overtly forced to be these systems all tactically other from that one that is native pure, even though it is everyone's human science. The human science and its roles with the ground science, unabridged, has not been afforded voice since semi-ancient time. This is most probable and just mine. So, people, I think there's one person. No one knows it. No one's on here now online. Can you find me, people of America, students of America, parents of students, citizens who already stopped or already graduated school, people who are homeschooled, people who read the news, the subscribers of all the big YouTubers, come here to this channel, to this video right now. These are great reasons to, because the Burroughs book and the New York Games and the pamphleteers will guide us to one page. And so once we're on the same page and like that, we can start going fast, fast, fast. And we're going to be doing it with the other countries too to make sure it goes even faster and there's no problems. And they would love it too, because if it doesn't feel like game/s, we sense it. See, the breaching method put other in. It put all fears and things like that. Oh, if you know what I mean? It put all it used what didn't feel good, what didn't feel like game to control everyone. See, we have to set back up the hyperpantheism. When from now on we speak about religion, who believes in the legion, that we should make of the legion/tribe/exception nature as a trinity to discern, as a tool to discern the invisible but still discernible, individual, grouped, and species identity of volume/S. To study it. So, Campus Marcius longs, lost tribes, lost legion. The legion only moves as tribe. The legion is the value of the species body that cannot see or know without each individual voice is finite. No, it has to have the finite of every true has to be allowed to have that quality of fact, keeping nature. See, they prevented that, a breaching method, and that was left entrenched. So we have to understand the founding parents were fighting with each other. They were counter-extorted to force to be able to put up a plan for their unity, incapable of defending the Constitution unabridged, but forced to get it up there. That's said, at least, that part of it. And that's the plan. Attack England and force them with their identity individually grouped and together. A whole bunch of nations would be in trouble against them. You're not supposed to have a colony that's not following the rules. In other words, as their little slave rules, including our founding parents, or that hurt them. So the British Empire was bigger than England, relevant to the extortion of leaders, no matter how powerful they get, where and how they engineered self-value, measured while they were measuring and maintaining self-value. No one realized they were using remotely and engineering the remote uses of people blaming on other things, others themselves. Nature demonstrating how the sciences abridged were being self-valued, abridged, and built upon by the fact keeping nature quality responses, instances, treatments, uses of other people's names, records keepings. All that was employed by a sick, crazy breaching method. That New York and that the suburbs and that the cities and the neighboring countries, same thing. We are going to regroup, take positions, YouTube ground, all gather around. So we're going to make a video called YouTube Ground to train. We have to make, and we'll make like 5 videos. And they will be owned by the boroughs. For example, each city, Hartford will make, Wethersfield will make 5. And so we're going to start setting up places for people in other states. Because we're going to be, it only feels like game/S. Just like you had them, better than had, but why and how you everyone had, we needed it, but they forced us to need it more than different than they said. We need street lights, paved roads, things like that. Telephone booths, now no longer. People involved with the transition, you wouldn't believe the extent of what we could have stopped if you guys had followed mandated law on time when I was a kid and every year since. They've been hurting the private and public school kids sickly distinctly, and the homeschool kids. And they've been using it remotely through time for all that actually tied to where and how. There was never sophisticated. It was a pseudo sophistication slash non sophistication. Arrays of people in collusion with the breaching method kept needed illusions tied to sequence shifts, finite active progressive lies that it needed to have increasingly kept blamed on other things, others ourselves, and needing to keep means for people to see and perceive and discern and actually blame for other reasons than its own and the breaching method's reason. It engineered those people as remotely used like marionettes, grouped too, countries A through Z, pseudo sophistication. Has them kept needing to hide the same lies with overt criminal enterprises, transnational ones, private ones, originally still forced, tricked, hurt, persuaded, self-value. Quality of fact, cheaping nature, we couldn't just differentiate where and how our real founders needed them to entertain natures of business that we couldn't entertain in the Constitution on a bridge, therefore counters to torture, slavery, identity theft, fraud, slander at all locations, areas, and states. Vaccines. So, prepare your fates to turn. Come back through leaf of Hades to God's means by earth, right here again. All trade. You cannot learn this at your campus, each with stolen name. Religion. Here, religion. Now, religion. Take your parts. Control your hearts. Enter the line. Control the mind. Who's out there? Nobody's watching. People, can you send me, please? YouTube algorithm, can you send me people from New York City to watch? They want to see it. They don't know. I mean, they know that they don't realize I'm up online. Can you show this to the people, like in suggested videos? And people, please watch under the YouTube videos. There's a name. You touch that name, and it takes you to the person's YouTube channel. And then there's tabs on there, and you can see the videos. There's a tab for playlists. There's a tab for, things, boxings. Look around the buttons in the features. Attention to detail. The Marines say, he many pray. They distinctly from the breaching method measure and maintain. That used to measure and maintain collusion with the breaching method not realized by anybody. In other words, they never had independence. Everybody only had A through Z countries. They only heard and allowed, talked about the way they steal your identity. Courage relative to people following orders of other people that are dishonest, identity theft, fraud, slander rules. That's a big problem. All fake branches. In other words, we can force mandated law followed. Simultaneously, it shows why it hasn't been followed. Simultaneously, shows what's actually recorded. Shows people how they were pretending to be the ones following mandated law. Like with the January 6th treatments, even if that whole thing is a made-up for theater, there are actual predicate acts that the news has roles with. There are actual conscious uses of the sense and sensibilities of branches when and identities and positions associated with them, the military thing, through time. When they're adults, how they're going to have to hide what they did, how they were criminally foreign influenced since they were kids. There's a method that is consciously replaced that is using which becomes and stays manifest to everyone missed, where and how they've been replacing the short words and revelations our founding parents left us to speak. And now evidence is that the Constitution must be valued unabridged and simultaneously, you know, all appearances, real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. So the January 6th committee is in the furtherance of covering up line progression, sequence shifts, pretending they have faith in FBI that they know that the FBI doesn't have faith, doesn't have integrity. Then they want us to lie. They want us. Oh well, you want to debate if we know this or not? Follow the mandated law. Care about that? They are worse than just phishing. There are roles with that identity theft, fraud, slander method too. That is sickly distinctly involved with the locations, like the schools in the suburbs, parks that we're going to set up to make then New York can breathe. And where everyone's playing the same game, only feels like games because evolution's fruits and gifts, meetings from nowhere. We'd have to set up the electrical engineering of it back. Red bricks. The block is black. The sidewalk cold. I had a good rap before. I don't know. It changes like there's a move when you have to set up the YouTube. It's good to set it up, have it ready. It's good to have a YouTube team. If I was a big YouTuber, I would have people working for me. We would have me going straight 24/7 making Little Rap Guy and Friends cartoons. Hey, man. It's the voice of Reeves. Oh, that's the voice of Little Rap Guy. And I can't just separate it. So, Sepp, Little Rap Guy, and Reeves, they are members of two different types of counter criminal enterprises. They are part of a anti-hyper archetypal criminal enterprise with no name. They are part of an anti-archetypal criminal enterprise named the Black Pupils. Half of it did not want to become an overt criminal enterprise. Half of it stole the method it was using to show how the branches of government are criminal enterprises, are criminal insidiousness and being and having been used remotely. So that got messed up. So now they're not, and that's relevant because in the cartoon value nature system, just like the real value nature system, everyone was worse than extorted at countries A through Z, people A through Z. So Little Rap Guy and his brother Romulus and Remus, they call him Little Rap Guy Romulus. They made a plan to counter extort that which has the extortion and the slavery and torture and identity theft, fraud, and slanders against every single identity of the human species identity of volume in the cartoon value nature system. And so that got messed up. And then now there's the other one. And they're trying to deal with that. So the whole world is extorted now and counter extorted. And they're being counter extorted too to make movies. And they're using it to re-educate because everyone was the short words and what is hyper evidential and the revelations, and which is not leaving out the value of and the importance of truth by sequence nature and by the value of it having been, too, even if it's not here now. Because that's what nature, that's how nature's course works. It has an identity of simultaneously that shows us and leads what next to do. The fake branches knew they were drawn wrong. See, but they drew them. They kept drawing because the same way the overt criminal enterprises. Because on and off campuses, they're the branches of government in all these different countries, all these different states, intercities. They are kept needing to hide something fluent through them. Knew that everyone would have to blame other things other than themselves, what nature would demonstrate, which is really what happened to American history. That is American history. What is really what happened as the history of the countries individually grouped and together with the narratives towards that, where they're pretending that's what happened. They're using all truths for lies and with overt lies. It's not just about, the only way to discern this is by using what is hyper evidential, by using how the hyper evidential works. Boxings to campus jerks with stolen name. Someone called the lost and found of campuses. Now each see breach and have the name returned. Not one has learned. Boxings. So, boxings to teach us things. Boxings to move our hearts, to show our soul. I have other ones I forgot. That's the better ones. Nobody's on here though. It's kind of depressing when the big YouTubers have all these videos. If I had those big, the big YouTube audience, we'd be going like this, and we stack the means, and the means stacked, and the ways stacking is specifically knowing that we're gonna counter things before they happen so they don't happen. Real positive reveals positive everywhere at once. So we have to fix. We have the rights and needs to have set up our ancient gaming system. More critical than the street lights. We could afford to fix the tactically denatured identity ground one way alone. And it requires, though, being a quality of fact, cheap nature, it requires that which was used to replace the short words and revelation of that which is actually hyper correlative and having been the substance of American history, which they were formed. Our founders had to fight with each other. That's why they had the breaching method was measuring everybody, what they were saying. It was maintaining them. If they were going to try to be any kind of a unity that could do anything about anything, they were going to be seen to trying to be a unity. Because it was individually grouped and together, countries forced. Blaming the real things on, and having blamed the real causes of negative values, progressions, acts, and natures on other things, others, ourselves. Exactly the breaching method, the proverbial devil, and worse and more finite simultaneously had. And it's why and how it's worse than just being the devil and more finite is why and how it has different names in different religions. So we learn from both the nature of things. The nature of religion has cipher, decipher, and cipher. And the physical parts of religion have cipher and decipher. We have both the nature prevented, quality of fact, cheap nature to show what is actually hyper evidential. And the first part, they won't let you speak about the first part of the Old Testament or the first part of the Quran. They will not let the significance of that be addressed, even though that's specifically why it says all people have to understand is right up to here in the Old Testament, right in the beginning of the Old Testament, where it says the sciences come together. So, but people can't do that. They can't afford that at any of the ground because the ground locations where everyone speaks through other people. There's an identity theft, fraud, slander that's been exploiting all that, manifesting and exploit. You know, where they separate the short words and revelations at each age of, in each nature of campus, sickly distinctly. Worse than criminal incompetence. Worse than criminal incompetence with the treatments of how the people rushed onto the Capitol and the responses to it, incapable of defending themselves and of even and of affording fact cheaping nature counters to all the natures of criminally foreign influenced um, narratives, positive negative treatments, memory treatments, opinions and convictions associated with that location. The breaching method was to all locations, the slavery method. Then further it was his intersciences, all private databases, overt criminal enterprises, opinions A through Z, criminal thesis natures of opinion nature. That's what was forced. Even though it was forced, that's what it was. So it, in other words, would be and stay. And that was being exploited. And the only way to counter that against everyone, the only way they could know how to counter it was by entertaining. Fact cheaping nature counters the way we know people do too. When they use words like debate, they have all kinds of physical delusions and criminally foreign influence premises treatment with the people with the sense and sensibilities of the people that run the debate, the people that are placing ad placements, the people that are in the debate. Everyone came through sick campuses. And they're making allegations against people. Oh, but you said they came through the campus. How could there be that? I said the evidence is. In other words, everyone knows the short words were placed. This requires a quality of fact, cheaping nature. We have to deal with phrases like criminal and seriousness and positive and negative and identity distinctly, differently. I mean, differently than, they're not allowing the native way to be right, to vaccines, to a species volume that knows. See, but it knew that everyone will have to blame other things or others ourselves when needing to counter criminally foreign influenced and maintained criminal incestuous. But through what motivation? Everyone missed. Through what method? Singular, everyone missed. Because of how all the plural motivations, natures, needs, interests are having been engineered as fact cheaping nature engineering. Juxtaposed with all those aspects of our physical engineering since before our founding parents were born, how and why really the suburbs are designed the way they are. It was associated with the torture and slavery of our founding parents. That's what's actually recorded reality. People want to debate that formally with passions and emotions. Dishonestly, they want to speak about our passions and emotions. Emotions are about the simultaneous, what is actually simultaneously recorded. And the value of sequence true, even if it came before, is actually what was simultaneously in the past. Boxing. When that didn't happen in Istanbul, does really well last time. Where is Istanbul? Is that in I don't know where that is, Ron Adams. Is that in Afghanistan? I don't know what happened in Istanbul. I know that not one modern country has science of integrity. It's not using logic of integrity. We see that. There's all kinds of manifest, actually recorded demonstrations of it. But we need free speech. They're pretending to be about freedom of expression, because they know simultaneously there have been roles preventing free speech on a mass scale originally, and still everyone's attached to fake words. They retype what's actually recorded. They lie about the nature of relationships between kids. Adults do, and the kids different other mode of judgment. It's right to. In other words, we need to get the whole species knows that since before foundings, the locations, areas, and states were in this trap. They were not using their native means. They were not using the means of unity to make it better. They were using means to lock it down, lock everyone having entertained what can't be entertained, and afford quality of fact, cheap nature, using the short words and revelations, what is hyper evidential as evidences. So in the way of people using correlation, that's why, in other words, they already painted themselves in corners. Their whole natures will be revealed. The people involved with the January 6th treatments, as the people who rushed it and did bad things, and the people countering him in collusion. That breaching method kept pseudo sophistication / non-sophistication and all the array between effectively. In other words, using this method, it knows it was sophistication here first before America's founders were born. That's why people are shocked and awe when our own educators and the people that are only allowed to speak in the news, the people that they bring out to speak in their programs and that run for them, they say, oh, well, George Washington owned slaves. Didn't you read? That's what the research says. See, we should know in our minds the database relationships were criminally foreign influence. We don't need paper research. That's actually recorded. But they deny us those evidences offensively, which is also relevant to where and how they've been using inter-campuses and intra-campuses manifest as criminal insidiousness, self-value also by people from off those locations, formal and informal collusion. This is where, like, private criminal enterprise originates still self-valued, and interbranch self-valued as criminal insidiousness, nature, positive, negative treatments, identity treatments, where they take collusion at campuses in the and motivating and keeping people motivated to hide the lies of the overt criminal enterprises, involved with identity thefts and frauds with them, slander with them. In other words, tied to the database, stacking fake things inter and intra campuses, tied to where and how they've been using arrests of little kids to plant fake things and to manipulate how individually grouped and together. Everyone hears other people's names before they see them, or after. They're keeping everyone needed to self-value. Identity theft, fraud, slanders, where individually grew, then more and more groups too, they make people need to hide the same lies. People that, in other words, when we're going to communicate with people with serious things with people in life, we're not going to know most of them. Or if we know them, there's going to be maybe other people there we don't know, so we're going to moderate our temperament. See, like, all that stuff is complicated as it seems. Like, if we try to sound complicated what a computer works like, but we know it's just a really simple thing. The person who built it, it's not complicated, it's just extensive, they'll tell you. So, but when they're telling that, they're not they're not going to explain how everyone tells it different, because these classes tells you this part of it, this class tells you because it's extensive, right? But they have the classes oriented towards that rather than the science of sharing identity. So in other words, rather about needing to learn about arrays towards different syntax with computer programming in life, The five identities of criminal and citizen's nature are kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts together. Finite active lies together. And uses of correlation nature. Correlation nature is insidious, positive and negative treatments and identity treatments at the youngest ages. At the other ages, multi-front simultaneously. But with those short words changed, not not just changed, tactically replaced while measured and discerned. That was maintained self-value. Okay, these people, our job is we're supposed to do this. We're supposed to respond this way to instances. So the different the overt criminal enterprises and the interbranch with their kids at the schools, they need to have responses to instances and to create instances, to have other people respond to instances wrong. Because the uses of the locations are shared. Uses of identity theft, fraud, slanders are shared. And this is everyone against everyone. As through reactions to not realizing. Just all that is actually to what we've entertained, what can't be entertained, and pretend that it's constitution unabridged, but it pretends as such. So then it has to pretend all it was democracy. It has to pretend. So it increasingly cares about democracy and its narrative. I'm fighting for democracy. It's not even a thing. It's not fighting for equality, fact sheeping nature. It's not fighting to liberate the finite, the individual's value. When we are in a positive value nature progression, it comes through our voice is individual first in sequence, where and how we are a simultaneous nature as the species body of one. When we are in a negative value nature progression, everyone cares for the individuals as a group or as the species body we have no control of. Told fake. So individuals more and more are prevented, quality of fact sheeping nature. So we have to have the original entrenchment method, the entrenched human fact sheeping nature, slavery, torture, slander, identity theft, fraud method. Those five things and uses of them by the method is what is actually discerned. So now one has learned to read from history and show the criminally foreign influence uses of all sides, including the narrators of the history, and how they have physical delusions juxtaposed in too, because many of them wouldn't be there if they hadn't been propagated. They are constantly propagated and engineered, having been engineered too by the breaching method that knew nature was going to continue to fill the worth and things tied to the worth of the short words and of the protraction of the short words from their abridged state, from their abridged ground locations uses. So then, too, the doctors tied to the interbranch in the mental health care, and that's simultaneously addictions. They have different types. We go to this building, but we share this. We deal with the elderly and aging, and we do this, and we're this job. These are the constituencies, Republicans and Democrats. They came through abridged sciences. And so, in other words, they self-value roles too, with the databases side of what is before it was completely. There are individual grouped and together a whole bunch of distinct natures of organized crime and worse that are bound with databases at databases tied locations. The only way to counter that properly is by understanding and countering what is worse than that, and effectively keeping per a method roles with that right back to all locations needed to hide from and hurt correlation nature, shown used remotely this way, shown their needs too. If you show the courts and the police forms how you caught them, doing lies. They use all these different methods, start forging and switching names, falsifying more police reports, colluding more with killers, colluding more with overt criminal enterprises. When you see the news using words like crimes, criminals, and taking short stories about real sick people, interstates, when they hurt people, they have a whole bunch of roles that they know. Like when, in other words, when they say, okay, we have to counter the criminals, look, repeat offenders. They make on a large scale, they make a whole bunch of fake arrests. They've been using arrests to plant evidences, including fact-sheet nature oriented. We have all the what is actually recorded will show us evolution's fruits and gifts and means, and the answer / S to questions that are solutions that are increasingly everyone couldn't fathom could be. So it's right there though, because we're since before cars, and we're still on the tactically denatured suburbs, and syntactically that's hid from that reality, per the reality that was engineered for people's sense and sensibilities to be used remotely, hiding from their logic too, with delusions and criminally foreign influence premises treatments, entertaining what people stacking is. In New York City, every location enslaved, tortured, identity theft, fraud, slanders against them. And in other words, to address New York City, we have to do it how is every location simultaneously. And in other words, then we're not, and when we have to use as value, how and why it's sickly distinctly there. It just happens, it's, everyone agrees about it there too, but everyone doesn't agree about how to counter it. And but everyone with their counters, they agree to the same old criminally foreign influence premises treatment sequence, syntax, and care treatments. No one really cares that the adults are doing bad things, like especially if they don't never do nonviolent things. They never had a chance since they were kids. That's a little trap. It is with every public school, every private school, homeschool. You're still in a trap. It's all locations. And all those identities of pseudo sophistication, it shows and showed needs to hide that by self-valuing uses of locations, where and how we take them with our syntax, our sequence treatments, our perceptions, our names treatment. When we see someone that's at a location, see, don't forget this. Okay, so thank you, everybody. When we get when YouTube ground, anyone who wants to make a YouTube ground video, put a link in this video or in one of the videos for the New York game, and for your YouTube ground video. And what it means is, like, you're going to be a person who's going to help communicate with the rest of New York. And it could also be any city in the world or any city in America. We're going to put each city set up in 5 parts. And we're going to switch those parts. Control our hearts. And in other words, we're going to organize a whole bunch of free ways, better than a lot of vacations, for people to, have easements. And we're going to take away a lot of the phenomena between the two sides. And wherever there are two sides, because everything is Trinity too. Do not disbelieve the value of the simultaneous and of the Trinity. Why and how it is a Trinity per scientific value. For example, where and how it's as an identity of volume, it's identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that as 3 equal values, as 3 equal ways we could discern its identity, even though it is invisible. inseparable from all parts of language, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously in demonstration of the same thing. Its distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to its stuff. The study of that involves the study of it distinctly as of identity of volume, visible, discernible, the hyper simultaneously. It involves the study of its identity of relationship to itself distinctly and not distinctly too, and simultaneously. It just requires the value of it distinctly not the same time. Thank you. Have a great night. Vaccines will go so fast. The whole world will love it. You guys will love it. You wouldn't believe how cheap infrastructure, how I mean cheap quality. I mean how means out of nowhere. How the scale like that. How its identity of relationship to the ground. It's our identity of relationship to itself. This is a little rap chapter now. Designed to make problems. Designed to make needs to counter it. Used for problems too. While pretending other. It's a breaching screen method. We have to attend where and how people pretend emotions and passions that like they care about science, and with physical delusions formally. So CRT, community resources training, and other forms of critical race theory and theory itself was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, being and have been employed by sources of the news, and their sources formal. The FBI has collusion with the Justice Department with predicate acts and cases against little kids, and roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones intercities. They have other motivations, natures, needs that have really been keeping them self-motivated. And to use words like family and neighbor and corners, you know what I mean? Like that. This is an identity theft, fraud, slander method. Attaches everyone to fake words. Then it forces people to speak as groups too, because then they can't defend the finite, the sequence shifts, for example. They can't, everyone. They attach everyone in fake words, fake audio and video. We have to have followed mandated law. So you should not take lightly, not what has been sustained at the world Capitol in Washington D.C. and what pretends that it didn't realize. For example, and it needs to hide it now by being investigated. They're fishing for means and needs to measure and maintain, not discern what they were doing in collusion leading up to that, and as criminal conferences, and as they're actually coordinations. They have delusions. They're caught sick. They can't defend themselves. That's why their logic is, oh, you saw it. You saw it. Saw what? They don't go down to finite acts. When they go out to the finite acts, the only one they let heard speak is one of the ones involved, with drugs and medicines crimes and with physical delusions simultaneously with his jailers. Yeah.